I want this to be interactive. I don't like classes where I just talk for 2 hours or an hour and a half, because then I feel like I'm just rambling on. So if you got an idea, you're thinking about something, you got questions, just jump in and bring it on, because that's always going to work out better. So we already covered finance, leverage, and then on Friday we covered lead generation. Today we're going to cover lead capture, and all those work together. So you can't have lead capture or conversion without lead generation, because lead generation is what's going to generate your leads. So today we're going to talk about conversions and stuff like that. Let me just make sure I got stuff working here. All right. So the main ideas today, we're going to cover the perspectives of lead generation and capturing. And the first step is you got to capture leads, right? You capture leads, there's nothing to do if you don't have any leads. So, if you go off the MRA models, you got to get that funnel going, and we just got to keep filling it up, throwing as many leads as we can into that funnel, because the whole point of that is once you go through the capturing of all those leads is how many of those can you actually connect with? And once you connect with those, how many of those can you actually close to an appointment? And then of course, it's about keeping track of them and reviewing and improving. Like, how are you going to nurture these people? How are you going to keep track of the ones you spoke to already, the ones that are ready to buy or sell already? And in this time of crisis, like, how do you keep track of the people that need help? How do you keep track of the people that you should be calling more than once a week because they're in need of something or they're going through a hard time? Here by us, it's in Chicago, it's like winter again. It's gloomy. It's like gloom and doom. It's cold. And, there are people out there that that this could be a big factor to them, so care calls in a time like this is important, and so when you're capturing leads and you're talking to people, leads are more than just somebody you're going to try to sell business to, especially in a time like today. So we're going to go through some of that stuff today, and step by step, we're going to break them all down. And then of course, the bottom line is, how do we get them to the closing table if they are ready to close? So the perspectives, right? Your lead capture and conversion system, it works in conjunction with your lead generation. What are you doing for lead generation? Alex is going to cover internet leads tomorrow, but whatever your lead generation is, that goes in conjunction with your lead capture. What are you doing every morning or every day? Are you consistent with that? What are the efforts that you're doing to turn those leads into business? So in a time like this, what are you doing to stay top of mind? What are you doing to make sure that when all this lifts up, you're the person they call? So we harp on this all the time. So you need systems, right? You need both systems. You need a lead capture and lead conversion process in order to manage your leads. So what are you doing? So as you're capturing leads, what are we going to do to capture those leads? What are some of the things that you're doing? Are you putting them into a CRM where you're dripping them, where you're automating some of the processes of keeping in touch with them, like texting? So what are the systems you have in place? In a market like today that we are in right now, back in the day when it was a seller's market, the fewer leads, it really didn't matter, what your conversion rate was, because it was a seller's market. So there was a lot of leads out there. So if you had 100 leads and you were converting at least 4 of them, it wasn't a big deal. But in a buyer's market right now, where there's not so much inventory, and there's not so many leads, the lower the amount of leads, the least amount of, people you're going to have to talk to. So your conversion rate has to be much better now. So where your conversion rate didn't really matter before, I mean, it always matters, but you could slide right through, right? So it's like when I got into business in 04, 05, there was so much business that I could just bring in all these people were just falling in my lap, and I was selling business, right? But when 08 came, all those people disappeared. All those people that were falling in my lap, they weren't there. So if I didn't have a good database, I wasn't capturing people, my conversion rate had to be awesome, because if I could only capture 20 leads, I needed to convert, better than I was doing in 05. So your conversion rate is going to play a big factor in this, and what are we going to do about it, right? So in a shifting market, what are the skills that you need? Well, we've been talking about capturing leads. But in a market like today, the most important one is going to be connecting with those leads. You got to find a connection. How do you connect with them? And then how do you get them to close into an appointment? What kind of appointment are you going to do now? So right now we're doing a lot of Zoom calls, right? So maybe how do you get them to engage with you on a personal point of view right now? I had a person I was talking to last week, and they're like, well, I'm like, I would just love to have a conversation with you as personal as possible. And I would love to at least see you. Can I do a Google Hangouts with you? Or do you want to do Zoom call? Because once you see a person face to face, whether it's through a computer screen or, in person, 6 feet away, the conversation is much different because you're able to see their facial expressions. You're able to see how the questions you're asking them are affecting them. And then the next part is, how do you cultivate those leads? How do you keep cultivating them? How do you stay in touch with them? How do you, get them so you could convert them? And the most important one for those that have an assistant or a team member that they work with. So like if you have an EA or a buyer's agent or even a listing agent, how are you holding your team accountable to lead generation, to lead capturing? Those things are all very important in this time. How are you going to hold them all accountable? Because without them, what are you going to do? So what are some of the things we could do? If you struggle with capturing motivated leads, or are you just letting them, just in the seller's market, people, so what are your struggles? Are you having a hard time capturing leads? And if you're having a hard time capturing leads, what are some of the things that you're doing or not doing? A little bit ahead, we're going to talk about some of the things that you could do to get prepared. What are some of the things you're doing to stay focused and respond to your leads quickly? Alex is covering internet leads tomorrow, but I talk about this when I train sometimes, and I do trainings for like Command. Internet leads are volatile. You have to be the first one to talk to them, because trust me, you're not the only Facebook ad or Zillow person they're talking to. So you got to make sure you're on top of it. And to cultivate them, what is your commitment? What is your commitment to cultivate that relationship? Is it on your calendar? Is it important enough in your calendar, so that you could cultivate these? Like, what are you doing to keep track of these leads? And like I was telling you, if you have an assistant, they have, what are they doing? What are they doing to convert this to business? What are they doing to help you to get these things going? So some of the things that we're going to talk about, like I said, you got to get prepared. If you're calling people every single day, or you're capturing all these leads on the internet, and none of them are responding back to you, or none of them want to stay on the phone with you, so what are your scripts like? What are your smart plans like? Who are your role play partners? You need to have more than one role play partner. Everybody's different. I tell all the new agents when I'm talking to them, or they're talking to me about their goals of going to orientation, they're like, oh, I'm role playing with my brother. That's good. Role play with your family. That's what they're for. That's what they should be there for, right? To help you and support you. But talk to somebody that's been in the business a long time. Talk to somebody that's new in the business. Someone that's been in the middle of the business. Talk to somebody that's no longer in the business but used to be in the business. Everybody's going to give you different objections. Everybody's going to give you different perspectives, and it's going to give you better knowledge and be better prepared. Also, your behavioral styles. Michelle talked about this last week. You got to be able to mirror and match. If you mirror and match your clients, and you match their behavior, you're going to be able to get more out of them. So if somebody talks very soft to you, maybe talk very soft to them. I have clients that will talk to me really, really fast. Like, okay, guy, what are you going to tell me? Tell me the price. What do you think the neighbor's doing? You talk to them the same way. Hey, the neighbor's doing great. We had 10 deals that went on the contract today. We have 13 leads, 13 new listings, and we have a couple of other ones that are that are going pending this today. They want the stats. They want to go fast. So mirror and match these people. So the 4 steps to conversion process. First, you got to capture them. No leads, you can't do nothing. Then you got to connect with them. The key is to connect with them. And internet leads are hard. Any kind of leads that's not face-to-face is going to be more difficult. So snail mail, that's going to be hard to capture those. Those are harder to capture than internet leads. But the hardest part after that, once you capture them, is how do you connect with them? What do you have to offer? So when you're calling your leads, what is your script? What are you saying to people when you're connecting with them? Are you just calling them and trying to get business out of them? In a shifting market, you got to look at your market. How is it shifting? What is the problem in the market right now? What is happening right now in the market that you need to adjust to? In this market, I guarantee you right now that if you call half the people and you're just like, hey, you ready to move now? What can I do for you? You want to buy this house? You're probably going to get hung up on. A lot of people are browsing through the internet because they're bored, because their kids are driving them nuts, because they're going nuts because they're not used to being at home for more than 2 hours a day. So we have to try to adjust to the current market. So when you call them, the first thing I do is just say, hey, how you doing today? My name is Ubaldo Keller Williams. How you doing these times of pandemic? And you'd be surprised what people will say to you. Some people will say, well, we're fine. Some people will say, like, you know what, is horrible. I don't know how teachers do it. I had one client tell me last week that he can't believe that he always used to complain about his teachers because he didn't realize how much trouble it was to teach a kid, especially his own kid. So people are going through some stuff now. So you have to adjust your lead capture and your lead generation to that. And then after you connect with them, how do you cultivate them? So if you connect with somebody that's having issues with their kids, how do you keep in touch with them? How do you cultivate them, right? Maybe you find some kind of suggestion on how to, I don't know, how to better teach, teach their kids at home. Now, fortunately for me, I would have to actually look that up because I'm beyond that stage already. But you know, how do you teach your kids now at home? How do you homeschool them while working from home? How do you homeschool them while working from home and dealing with your spouse or significant other at home along with your kids, pets, and all that stuff that's going on in your house? So cultivate them, which then will lead to conversion. Because from this, something's going to come up. Somebody's going to say, you know what? I realize that I need to move because this is not working for me. The house is too small. I need something. If we're going to stay, quarantine for a couple more months, I'm going to need a bigger house because I cannot work with my husband or spouse in the same room because we're going to kill each other. You guys okay? I mean, I know I'm just like going like 900 miles an hour, but that's usually my style of teaching unless somebody interrupts me. So give me some feedback. You guys good so far?
Yeah.
Alive and kicking.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you definitely want to, you definitely want to be there, and you definitely want to relate, like presenting to the different personality types. You're touching on all the right chords. One step is like, it starts off with the hello pace, like Ubaldo said. If they say hey, you say hey. If they say hello, you say hello. Whatever it may be, and then match their rate of speech as fast as possible. Another trick too is that everyone either talks through their nose, their throat, or their belly. So like those are the 3 shortcuts to NLP. So
absolutely. Capturing leads, the capture part, I think for me has been the easy part. I could capture a lot of leads. The conversion rate's the part that everybody has difficulty with. And most importantly, the most difficult part is usually connecting with people.
that's it. The fortune's in the follow-up.
Yeah. And I think it's because people give up half the time. Like if they don't answer you on the first try or they don't respond to your first text, people give up. Like, yeah, they're not interested.
I forgot who did the study, but it's most people buy a product after the 8th close. 8. Most realtors don't follow up more than 3 times.
Yeah, and you know what else is
a lot, actually.
You know what else is really fascinating about it for those who have children? Think about this. How often is it that your child will give up when they seek something that they desire with all of their hearts after the first time?
That's it. Follow up like a 4-year-old.
100%, man.
100%. Relentless, absolutely.
I believe Grant Cardone touched on that in Sell or Be Sold. And it was like, we as children were great salespeople because we never gave up. And then we got conditioned to start giving up as we grew older and became adults.
Yeah, I'm not sure why either, because I remember being one of those relentless kids. Like, if my mom told me no, I would go to my dad, and if she said no, I would go back to my mom until one of them broke or until I just gave up for whatever reason. But it would take at least 10, 15 times before I would give up on my parents. So we got to do the same thing, when we're trying to sell business. How do we stay on top of it? How do we going to get these people to say yes to you? The type of lead generation that we're doing now, it's just so different than what we were doing before, because this type of market that we're in now is so different. I mean, you got to try to get people to talk to you face to face. You got to Zoom them. You got to do whatever media you use out there. You got to use it today. So what do you do about capture? So to me, about capturing leads is like, what are you trying to do? In this type of market, you got to adjust to the shifting market. If you try to capture every type of lead out there, you're going to struggle. You can't be everybody's realtor. You know, I remember this in 08. I had to decide, like, am I going to try to still continue to do traditional real estate, short sales, and REOs? Can I do all of those at one time? I could technically, but I'm not going to be any good at any of them because I'm trying to do all of them at the same time. You know, so you got to pick a niche. Are you going to work with buyers or sellers? And one of the classes the other day, one of the young ladies said she's switching to becoming a buyer specialist because this is what she's getting right now, and because we're so virtual now, she's able to do it from wherever she's at. And so you have to look at your market. Who are the people that you're capturing? Are you capturing buyers or sellers? What's going to be your niche? Are you going to look at high end or geographic or demographic? You know, what does your database look like? What are the type of people that are calling you? And you have to decide, because when you're lead generating, when you're lead capturing, and if you really focus on a particular niche, you're going to be more successful than if you try to do everything. It's like those realtors that try to be a regular realtor, a luxury realtor, and a commercial realtor. You could do each one of those, yes. Our license allows us to do each one of those. But you're never going to get good or better at any one of those if you're focusing on all three at one time, because you're not giving it the time that you need. When you're lead capturing in this type of market, the same thing. You got to pick a niche, and then you got to decide, are you going to work with buyers or sellers? Is this a seller's market or a buyer's market? And then you have to go after those leads. So what are you going? How do you got to find motivation now? This slide is a little bit outdated. You know, it's from back in the first shift we had in 08, but it's kind of still applies. You know, are they ready, willing, and able? You got to take a couple extra steps when you're capturing. I'm like, okay, what's the reason for them looking at my listing? Are they looking at it because they're ready to buy? Are they ready to buy now? Are they ready to buy later? And if they are ready, are they willing to do what is necessary to buy the property? And after they, find out if they're willing, then you have to find out if they're able to, right? But right now, more than ever, the finding out if they're ready, the motivation part is going to be, you got to be very tactful. You cannot just go at people and try to drill them like you normally would in a regular lead generation class. You're going to have to first come from contribution. Right now, when you call people and you're following up on a lead, find out first and foremost, always ask, how you guys doing? How's your family? Tony DeSello said the other day that we have to be more tactful. Like, don't just say like, how you doing? Because we're going to say like, we're okay. How's your family doing? My family is great. Good. How are your neighbors doing? How are you doing? And then sometimes while you're going through those questions, they're going to talk to you and tell you, you know what? My family's okay, but I'm actually struggling right now. So you got to be more, you got to be more about what you're doing here. So let's think about it. Who are your preferred customers? And when you figure that out, what are their profiles? So you see, we're trying to define now what your niche is. Whether you think about it or not, whatever it is that you're working on, you're going to define a niche. Who are your preferred customers? What are their profiles? And does your prospecting and marketing target those people? So are you doing the right ads? Are you doing the right lead generation to capture the right leads? Again, if you go and copy and paste every ad copy you see out there on every Facebook page, you're going to get leads. But are you going to connect with those leads? And are you going to convert those leads? Because if they're not your preferred customer, you might not even call them. It's human nature. We like to pick and choose our stuff for whatever the reason is. It's like when I eat M&Ms, right? I eat the brown ones last. It's just the way it is. Sometimes I don't even eat those. So, and what are their profiles? What is it that you like about those particular types of customers? And then you got to focus your targeting and your leads and your lead generation to that. Because if not, you're you're just going to drive yourself nuts calling 100 people and collecting 100 names that you're never going to call.
I like that it says stop and think, because like literally stop and think, like actually it's not a suggestion. Like you've got to start like you all was talking about here. You got to start with the end in mind and go, well, who am I looking for, and what is it that they're clicking on? What do they want to see? And what are the questions that they'll respond to? And you have to work backwards from that. Otherwise, just go out and ask a bunch of people a bunch of random questions, and you're going to get a bunch of random stuff like that. It's like thinking, when you want to talk about hunting or fishing or something, you got to think like the fish, right? What is the fish? What bait is the fish looking for? And then go get that bait. Don't just go grab a bunch of different kinds of bait and throw them in the water, right? Like start with that ideal customer and design the questions based on who they are and what they want. And that's how you'll actually get, a focus around something. So the stop and think is to be taken literally, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And to piggyback on that, Alex, too, is remember, like logic makes them think, emotion makes them act. That's why you need to figure out what they're looking for and ask the questions. And then also tie in the motivation as to why. Why is that important to you? What would your life look like if you got that done? So logic makes them think, emotion makes them act.
Absolutely, 100%. With that, that's how you design your profiles. Like, what is it about them that you like? So write notes down. When you're going through these courses of Shift, and you're lead generating, you're prospecting, you're capturing leads, who is your desirable or your desired lead? What are the type of customers you want to deal with? And then choose it, and then you got to make sure you put together the list of things that you need to do in order to target those people. So if you're targeting luxury, what do luxury people like? What are those people like? What are their personalities like? And what do you have to do in order to match that? And what kind of ads or lead generation you have to do in order to capture those type of leads? Same thing with commercial and same thing with residential. Okay, so this is super outdated, in my opinion, because sign calls, I don't know about you guys, I get very little sign calls. I mean, we'll get some, but it's not like what it used to be when I started in the business in 04 and 05. I mean, that was the business, sign calls. 800 numbers, I don't think anybody is really using those anymore. Some people still do, but IVR is kind of, gone. Newspapers, definitely, magazines for sure. Flyers might still work. Newsletters, digital ones. So those are methods of capturing, but you always have to make sure that you have to design, how are you going to capture people, right? So if you're sending a newsletter, how do you capture people that want your newsletter? So when you're talking about all this stuff and how you're doing this, is like, okay, what is it about my newsletter that people want to read? And are you going to take the time to do it? Again, the newsletter should focus around the type of person you want to capture and around the type of business you want to capture. And then also, you got to have some personal stuff in there, not necessarily about you, but just about the community in general. I mean, a newsletter just about real estate drives people nuts. I forget, somebody did a study, and I forget what book it is that I was reading once. If you just pound people with your business, people will start to walk away. So what can you offer them to be engaged? If you're targeting a neighborhood or a subdivision, maybe you put something in there about the subdivision. Maybe you know something about the school team. Maybe you know something about, the local charity place. Out by us, one of the big things that we do here is we have Park Lawn. Park Lawn is a place for people with disabilities, and we contribute a lot to them. So if you're doing a newsletter, you got to include stuff like that so that people are engaged, people know that you are truly part of the community and that you want to share information. Open houses, well, virtual ones, those are still hot right now. Somebody just told me that they posted a virtual open house. They had a bunch of people on there, and then they got 3 offers. I forget who it was, sent a message the other day. But that is so cool. Do virtual open houses, they work. It's kind of going back to the day, back when I started in the business, virtual tours were like the thing. If you put a virtual tour, people love that. We're going back to that now. So we're back to virtual tours, except they're a little bit more high def now and a little bit more sophisticated than they were back in the day, but we're back to that. And of course, the number one is cold calling. You capture a ton of leads if you cold call. Is it the best? No. I mean, I'm not saying the best, like the best way to get leads. I'm saying it's the most appealing one. Not to a lot of people. It takes a special person to want to do cold calling or outbound calling. But I'll tell you, I'll do whatever it takes to feed my family. So if I have to cold call, I will. So these are the kind of the ways that you're going to capture. There are other ways. Nowadays, we got Facebook ads. Facebook ads, if you run the right ad and you target it right, it takes a little tweaking, so you got to, test some of these. For very little money, you could run some real good sophisticated leads. I mean, I ran one not too long ago, got 53 leads for just a couple of bucks. I think my total expense was like 12 cents a lead. It was actually really good. It was the best one. I haven't been able to recreate that conversion rate anymore. I think the second best one was like 32 cents a lead, which is still super cheap. So Facebook ads, Instagrams, if you're good with Instagram or live YouTube videos, we have a girl in our office. She does great with YouTube videos. So what is your niche? What is your method of communicating with people? Is it Snapchat? Is it Twitter? Is it Google Ads? I mean, what is your niche? Right? So you got to pick one of these. So instead of sign calls, is it Facebook? Instead of IVR numbers, is it Twitter? What is your niche? So there's a lot of ways to capture leads here. Phone calls. Was that David?
In terms of capturing, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, but I can hear you.
Okay. Said, when it comes to capturing leads, wouldn't you say that the method of communication is going to have to deal with the demographic you're trying to reach too, right? Isn't that what you're really kind of dialing in? Who are the people you want to have as your buyers? Who are the people you want to have as your sellers? What form and method of communication works best for those who you're trying to capture, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, so if you're picking a certain niche, luxury people like to be reached a certain way, commercial people a different way. So you got to pick those and you got to do your homework. Where are you finding those people? How do you get a hold of them? So, your database is a different thing, right? So who are you capturing? So yeah, absolutely, David. When you're capturing leads, you got to get those things fixated on a type of person you want to, type of buyer or seller you want to get, type of niche you're working on. Phone calls are always good. Most people could deal with phone calls, but calling right now, besides making a good impression right now, is really, you got to be very tactful. Get your scripts done, because right now you got to call people with some care, with some love, with, contribution. That word keeps coming up, contribution. Answer their questions clear, speak warmly to them. Of course, you always start out speaking warmly, but, I said earlier, the minute they start talking, you got to mirror and match them. If they sound angry, feel their pain. If they're upset, be sad with them. So, just got to make sure. In the appointment thing, I would say you got to play it carefully, right? So, because right now, I think it was James Shaw the other day, he posted on one of the groups, the 3 C's of calling people, compassion was one of them. And then the very last one was common sense. So, have some common sense. Before you ask for an appointment, make sure that you understand where they're at. Because if they're having a hard time right now, you really want to keep digging for an appointment. If they're struggling with job loss or people being sick or struggling with their family. So make sure you understand, come from compassion, and make sure you have common sense when you're talking to people on the phone. So online leads, your database is super important. How are you going to systemize this process, right? How do you systemize the process? Well, if you're with KW, we have command, right? And if you're not utilizing command, then you are really missing out. Systemize your process, bring the leads in, right? Number 1, because you can run your campaigns from there. Get the leads automatically put into the system. Add them to a smart plan. Add them to a home search. So all this stuff could be done through your CRM. And if you're not using command, whatever CRM you're using, I've used LionDesk in the past and they had something similar. I've used, Top Producer. They have something similar. So whatever system you're using, make sure that you're systemizing your process and make sure that you're utilizing it for what it's for. Make sure that you're getting your money's worth, because some of those are pretty pricey. So if you're spending that kind of money, are you utilizing the system? You know, command, well, you know, you guys all get command if you work KWs, but make sure that you have a systemized process. So I did a class the other day. My process is when a lead comes in, it's like call them. If they don't answer, you leave them a voicemail. Just a short one, just saying, hey, I'm following up on the fact that you liked one of my ads. Just want to get some feedback. I send them a text. And then I send them an email. And after I do that, I put them in a couple of smart plans because I want to talk to them quarterly. I want to stay on top of their mind so they know that I'm there. Even if they're not calling me back. Put them in a drip campaign on a biweekly nurture program, you know, something like that, so that you're staying on top of their, it's got to be systemized. It's got to be very streamlined because you got to be able to keep going through your list until you connect, because the people that you connect are the ones you're going to spend time with. So make sure you have a process to do all this. Conversions, you know, all this stuff right here, these are all like outdated. I think the referral one's a big one. Call your referral partners right now. Call them one, check on them. Hey, how you guys doing over there? I just talked to the lady that referred me business from Ohio. How you guys doing in Ohio? We kind of went over the stuff that they're doing over there versus what we're doing over here. What are the restrictions versus our restrictions? You know, just follow up with them. Stay on top of mind. Make sure they know that you're still here. Make sure they know that you care about them. You know, email is a big one still, and your smartphone. Obviously, how many people do you have in a smartphone? So get all your leads, put them on a systemized process. Put them on smart plans. You know, call all the people that you know and make sure they know that you care about them. And then if common sense applies, and feel free to ask for, hey, do you know anybody that might need to move? Do you know anybody that's struggling to pay their mortgage? Maybe I could help them. You know, there's different ways to come out of contribution here. All right, so stop and think for a second. And then write this down. Write it down and just to yourself, describe your current capture system. Write down how you're categorizing your leads. And if you're done doing that, then write down what can be improved, like what are you missing? This is important because a lot of us think we have a great system in place. And trust me, none of us have it perfect. So really stop, think, and describe your current capture system. What do you currently have in place to capture leads? What are you doing? How are you categorizing them? For us at KW, how are you tagging them? And then what can you improve? What can you add there, right? Is there a system, a person, or something you could add to this process?
Ubaldo, can I say something real quick?
Of course, Kim.
This is a great time. I mean, and I speak from, because it's a time to really take advantage of this. So we're kind of forced to slow down, so to speak. You know what I mean? We're not out there running around. This is the time. I mean, I have taken this time to dive into command and getting every day my contacts, going through them and scrubbing them. And like you're saying, categorizing. So are they A? Are they B? Are they C? What towns? I'm tagging all of them. And then when it's a little bit slower, you don't have the constant interruptions. So really think about, and we all sell differently and we all talk to people differently, but what is your individual system that you want to do? You know, whether you're on a team or you're not on a team, even though I have a team, every member on my team does things differently. So what is your system to get to the common goal of conversion or maintaining that relationship? You know, I've got a seller right now. They were a Zillow lead from 2016. They finally listed and were under contract because it's that follow-up, that's staying in touch and communication. So this is the time right now we should all be taking to really take this and implement. It's one thing to hear it, but implement it. Work with your systems, because you can slow down a little bit in order to speed up.
Absolutely. You hit it right. You hit the nail right on the head, Kim. This is a time, because we're at home right now. This is a time that we could take to categorize and tag our clients. Like some of us that do the D2 database thing. Are your client, is your database tagged correctly? You know, your A's, B's, and C's, if you do that kind of tagging. Your VIPs, who are, you know, I have one that I have in there that are like, as I'm going through my database these couple of weeks, I'm tagging them like, you know, elderly, you know, like I probably should follow up on them a little bit more because they're elderly, they might need some help. I mean, just kind of use this time to really categorize and systematize your database so that when you're going full speed ahead 2 months from now, that's done for you already.
And write your scripts. You know, if you have scripts or if you're using scripts, that's great. Or even tweak them or create, because we're under a situation now where there's new scripts to write. So write your scripts for times like this.
Absolutely, write them, practice them. One of the things I haven't done in a long time, and when you said scripts came to mind, I used to record myself and then listen to myself how I was saying the script to see how I sounded. Like, because if I know that if I didn't like the way I like, if it was calling me, I figured other people wouldn't like it either. So record yourself, how you sound, talk to different people, and role play. I think role play is going to be a big one right now. I mean, what else do we have to do, right? Zoom call after Zoom call, one of those could be a role play session. You know, so do role playing. Let's get it done. Let's talk to people, and you know, get your systems in order because it's going to be a big one. All right, so let's talk about connecting with once we capture them, right? So one of the biggest things is we got to capture them, but the next big thing is going to connect with them. How do we get them to talk to us, right? So answer all calls immediately, right? Well, right now it's not so much about answering calls in this time around. It's more about the minute that lead hits your inbox, you call that lead, right? Because the respond, to me, this 5-minute thing, to tell you the truth, nowadays in the internet age, 5 minutes I think is too long. If you're not calling them within the first 2 minutes, they already saw 2 more ads on the internet. They already click more info on 2 more ads. And who's going to be the person who's going to get that lead? Who's going to connect with them? It's whoever calls them first. You know, so if you have teams, this is important. I think this is a very important one. If you have teams, once we start doing lead routing, I mean, I would say that if you set up lead routing and if they don't answer, they don't call it or claim the lead within the first minute or two, it goes to the next person because you're trying to get those leads, you know, connected as quickly as possible. So 5 minutes, in my opinion, is too long. You know, if you don't respond quickly, someone else will, right? You know, right here, it says, actually the last line, it says 1 or 2 minutes to create a positive lasting impression. Look, right now, when the fastest person is going to win, but also besides the fastest person is going to be the most compassionate, most understanding person is going to win too. So like Kim said before, you got to make sure you have your scripts ready. Memorize them, practice them, write them down. Because the minute you call those leads, you got to know what you're saying to them. And remember, you know, be compassionate and have common sense. You know, not everybody's going to be ready to move. And when people tell you, hey, this is not the right time for me, I got stuff going on, you need to understand. You need to sound, you have to sound like you care about that, like you care about them.
One of the other things that I've been talking to my team about is, especially because we're all getting, you know, I'll speak myself, but you know, being on camera was not like something that I enjoyed doing. And so through all of this, I think we're all kind of gotten through that phase. You know, it's like, okay, this is video, you know, this is kind of like a new norm now. So one of the things that I've been working with or talking to my team members about is creating an automatic like response to these leads. So if you're texting, calling, or emailing and you're not getting a response, send them a little video link, just kind of saying, hey, I saw you inquired about a property and I'm just here to answer any questions and see if there's anything else I can do to help you. And also if you're interested in an online buyer's consultation, give me a call. My thought process, and I'll be honest, we haven't implemented it quite yet, but my thought process is as we keep moving and doing that, that's something remembers. I mean, if people put it, like you said early on, if you put a face and a name together, now, even if they may not be really interested, they're just kind of looking. If you kind of respond more video, they're going to start to know you versus you know, a phone call or a text message. It's more personable. So that's I think the wave of the future is what I see.
Absolutely, that's a very cool idea, Kim. Absolutely. You know, somebody actually asked me today, what happens if they don't answer or your text or your call or your email? And my response is like, well, I just text them again and call them again until somebody responds back, right? But how cool is that? That's an actual very cool idea.
You can shoot
You know,
you can shoot a quick video, just use their name and
yeah,
just whatever you would say to them, just shoot a quick snippet, you know, 10, 15 seconds, like the intro. And then you know, I want to challenge my team and myself to see what kind of response, do we get a better response that way? I think that's something that, you know, if we implement that, now they may save that in their phone. And at least if they're like, who's this? Now they have that face and that you know, message from you. So when they are looking, you stand out from everybody else.
absolutely, 100%. That's a phenomenal idea. You know, because I mean, and today it's so easy to just do a quick video. I mean, every phone records now. I mean, we're recording right now as we're doing this class. I mean, so I mean, everything nowadays, our technology is so easily for us to do all these kinds of things and so quickly. That's awesome.
How many people are like this when they call? Don't answer, don't answer, don't answer, don't answer. So now you can just send a message and it's like, okay, now if they want to answer, it's like you made a call. So now it's
Right.
like, don't answer. So now you can send them a message and then if they call you back, great.
You must have seen me trying to call before, Kim.
No, that's me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I used to do that all the time. Now I'm much better now, but before, oh my gosh, I used to hate cold calling when I first started doing REO. That was, you know, before I got into REO, when I was doing short sales, that was like killer. You know, please don't answer, please don't answer, and then like you had to be ready when they actually answered. But that's cool. That's a good way to go. Some other people say, you know, drop them a voicemail. You know, occasionally. I try to stay away from slide broadcasts personally, but sometimes it's easy to send a quick message to like 50 people, you know, especially if it's during a time where something's going on and you want to drop a quick note or a quick update about what's happening in the community right now. Those are quick ways to do that. A quick video is awesome. You know, you could record one video and send it to five to 25 people at one time. But the way Kim's talking about, I mean, you're talking about leads, you can make it personable in like 10, 15 seconds. Talk about a way to have a conversation, right? So as we move on, it says the reason for conversation. Well, they might just want to call you and be like, well, thanks for that video. I'm like, I didn't, you know, that's new because nobody else is doing that except Kim and then me next week. But, you know, right now you got to identify the motivated people. You know, what motivates them? Is it, what's the urgency? You know, people are still getting laid off. You know, so when you call and you're compassionate, be prepared for those things. When you ask how are things going, they're going to give you an answer, and you be ready for the answer. You know, how are you going to respond to that? You have to be ready when they tell you, you know what, how you doing? You know what, not so good. You know, my ex family member, or whatever, is fighting the sickness. You know, you're going to get that, and you got to be ready to, you know, to hold on to your, you know, to your wits when they're talking to you about that. You know, or maybe they like, you know what, you know, I haven't been able to feed my kids properly over the last 2 weeks. You know, what are you going to do about that? You know, what are you going to, you know, so when you say you're going to help people, how can I help you? Be prepared because people are going to ask you, you know, for their help. So the conversations are totally different than they were, you know, just weeks ago. And when it talks about communicating in person, you know, it was on the bottom of that slide. That's where I go about Zoom calls. I mean, it's so easy to do a video call nowadays. I mean, you could do you could use everybody can use Zoom for free for 45 minutes. So why couldn't you talk to somebody for like 10, 15 minutes over via Zoom? Send them a link. I would love to chat with you. Can you join me on Zoom and have a face-to-face conversation? So when you ask them how you're doing, you could really see what their face expression is about how they're doing. You know, and then your questions, you know, so what are the smart questions, right? Motivation, features, price, you know, all that stuff. In this case, you know, some of the questions might be like, how are you doing? What can I do to help you? You know, do you think you're going to go back to work soon? Are you receiving unemployment? You know, are you laid off or your company closed? You know, some small businesses are hurting that bad that they're actually shutting down. You know, is there a motivation in there to sell or a need to sell? You know, if they say, you know, I just lost my job and, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, let's do something right now before you come to a point where you can't pay your mortgage anymore. Right? So you got to start asking your questions. So, you know, write down a list of questions. What are some of the questions we should be talking to people about? How are you doing? How's your work doing? How are your kids doing with online learning? You know, do they need tutors? You know, I was talking to my kid the other day. You know, she's in college, but her and her friends are you know, we're talking about doing a mentoring group where they could do tutoring for kids, you know, in high school. Maybe that's something that you could put together and help your clients out or the potential leads out there. You know, what are some of the things that it's going on? If you're out of work, do you have enough money to pay your mortgage for the next 6 months until you find another job? No? Have you thought about maybe selling before it becomes too late and you're behind on your mortgage? You know, it comes from contribution. Ask the right questions. You're going to get the right people. You're going to connect with them much differently than if you ask, you know, if you just go in there bluntly. And so scripts, and with those scripts, have your questions ready. So you have the right questions that you're asking people. Because the wrong question will get you a hang up or some good choice words too. You know, for buyers right now, it's like, okay, same questions, right? Why are you looking to move? Are you downsizing? Is this your first time buying? You know, make sure that you know what your lenders are doing, because when you're talking to these buyers, you know, I know some of the questions here is like, what is your dream home? Well, yeah, you know, I could have a dream home right now, but what is my credit score like? You know, how much money do I have in reserves? Because a lot of lenders are asking for 6 months in reserves. You know, and what kind of programs are out there? A lot of them are not out there anymore. So you got to make sure you understand that. So when you're talking to your buyers, you understand what you have to offer them, and then you understand what they're trying to buy. So it's right now, it's like, what is your dream home? Like right now, it's like, what kind of house do you need? I know you probably want a mansion, but what do you need?
Other thing that Tony DeCello mentioned, I don't know, in the last couple of weeks, he said that when you're asking questions like this, whether it's when you're connecting or eventually at the appointment, are you willing to buy a house based on a video tour, or are you going to need to see it in person? Mm-hmm. You know, it'll tell you a lot about their level of urgency or motivation, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because right now, I mean, my sellers, I got an elderly seller. He's not allowing anybody in his house. So I did a virtual tour. I asked him to let me come in. He stepped out of his house. He went to his son's house, and I did a virtual tour. And every time somebody calls me about the house to do a showing, I said, look, right now we're only doing virtual showings. Send me a pre-approval, and I'll send you the tour. You know, so, and that will show you the motivation of those buyers. Like if they're willing to do those steps, you got a pretty strong buyer if he decides to look at it.
Yep.
You know, so absolutely. So the needs of a buyer right now are going to be super, super tactful. Like Alex said, are you willing to buy a house, you know, via virtual, write an offer? Obviously, a home inspection via virtual tour, via virtual. Are you going to be okay with that? Because a lot of people don't want you in their house. If it's vacant, it might be better, right? But if it's being lived in there, you know, if there's kids, if there's elderly people in there, you might not be able to walk through the house. So is the buyer okay with that? You know, what are they willing to, you know, are they willing to do all that? So, and then what are their needs? You know, what do they need? Make sure you know exactly what your buyer wants and needs. For sellers, you know, it's going to be the urgency and the reasons for selling. Their motivation is going to be huge right now. Do you want to put a house on the market? Yes. Why do you want to put the house on the market? Make sure you have the right questions. Are you going to want showings in person or not? Do they have to be virtual? You know, what is the motivation is going to be after that, what is the motivation? Do you need to sell because you're struggling with mortgages, or do you have to sell because of a job situation? People are still moving because of job situations. I have a relocation buyer right now. He's coming in from Kansas. People still need to move. So what is the motivation? Why do you need to move? Are you relocating? Do you need to move? You know, do you need to downsize? So, you know, and of course you always ask, like, what do you think your house is worth right now? And right now, most importantly, you got to tell people, you know, you understand the kind of market that we're in right now, right? So somehow in there, you got to make sure they understand realistically, because we have control of everything except one, the market. We can't control the market. We control everything else. I control the advertising. I control how big the sign is, and how good the pictures look. I can make probably the house look better than in pictures look better than it does in person, but I cannot control the market. You know, that's one thing that I have no control over. And as for the appointment, right? Once you understand that they need to move or they need to sell or buy, ask for the appointment. Ask for that Zoom appointment. Let's talk via Zoom. Let me go over some of the stuff. Let me share the documents with you. I mean, how cool is it to be conversating with them like we are right now, and you're showing them documents on the screen, or you're showing them your CMA. Talk about a virtual CMA, huh? You know, so close for the appointment. You know, get it done. And then offers, you know, so when you're closing for the appointment, you got to have good reasons why you're going to close for the appointment. What are the reasons? Hey, I know I can help you. I've done short sales in the past. I have a great team of a great lender that's going to help you. I have great people that behind me that are going to help make sure that we get your house sold fast and get you moved to your next location. We have a great referral program. So once you know their motivation and their needs, you know, make sure that you understand what you have in your arsenal to make sure you give them good reasons to meet with you. And, you know, day and time, right? Right now, we could meet at any time of the day. On Zoom, you could, you know, anytime. You could be in your PJs and still have a meeting with them. Maybe you won't do a video call at that point, but, you know, you could basically be in your PJs and still have a good meeting. And as you're connecting with people, make sure you're taking notes. You know, whether you're using Command or any other CRM, make sure you're writing notes. Every time you talk to somebody, log an activity. I had a phone call today with buyer, blah, 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 or seller, blah, blah, blah. I found out their motivation is X, Y, Z. I found out that they really want a house like this, but they could only really afford this. Because when you call them the next time, be like, hey, the last time we talked, I know that you really wanted a house that has 5 bedrooms, but we know that you can only really afford a 3-bedroom home. Is that a big deal to you? Do you really need to live in this neighborhood? I know that if we move you to this neighborhood, you know, you might be able to afford a little bit more house. You know, what are their needs? What are their motivations, right? So make sure you're taking notes in your database. Make sure you're putting down why they're going to be working with you, and have a follow-up plan. What is your follow-up plan? Follow-up is number one. If you're not following up, you're going to lose them. I have one of my agents that called somebody that they haven't talked to in 2 years, and they're like, oh yeah, you know what? I was just thinking about selling a house, and now they have a listing. Lucky enough, she was the one that called and checked in on them, because we have a thing going on right now about teams and making sure we're calling people. But if you follow up, people will sell with you. People will buy with you even now. All right, guys, so stop and think. Now, before we talked about describing your capture system, right? Describe your current system with connecting with leads. Like, what do you do to connect with leads? What are you doing? Are you calling them? Are you texting them? Are you emailing them? Are you sending videos like Kim suggested? Is there something you could implement? And then what are some of the things you need to change to have a better lead system? So as you're going through this, make sure you're writing this stuff down. Make sure you're taking notes and you're actually writing this stuff down. Because I'm telling you right now, if you're not writing this stuff down, you're going to be done with this course. And then what else are you going to go? What are you going to do? You're going to go back to doing the same thing, right? But you take some actionable notes and actually describe your process right now for connecting with leads. And then what improvements can you do?
Ubaldo, one of the things that's been made really easy for this right here is if you just get everybody onto an action plan, onto an automated email marketing plan that allows you to see who's engaging with the marketing, that really cuts down the list so that you can connect with the people who really need to hear from you most. So, you know, inside of Command, this is smart plans. If you have people on these neighborhood nurture programs, and you've got more people than you can, you know, nobody can call everybody in the database in one day, right? Like, it's just too many people. So how do you know who to call when? Well, one of the ways you can do that is based on who's engaging with your marketing. So, you know, if you're getting everybody on these plans and then these couple of people are clicking on a million things, call them, right? And it makes it easier for you to identify who wants you to connect with them. You know, they didn't necessarily say that verbally, and yet they're the people that are thinking about real estate. So it just makes it easy, and you don't have to think about it at all. You just get everybody on the plans. You can work through Do Database 2 or something like that to be proactive about remaining in relationship with people. But then when it comes to who needs to do business right now, that's a great clue.
That's awesome, Alex. Alex, what would you say to people that are thinking right now, well, like, people are not engaging with my stuff?
Yeah, I just don't have enough people. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know the percentages. I know that when I go into my command, I have the contacts page set up where the home smart view shows me all contacts sorted by most recent visited. So I'm focused on the people who have most recently engaged. The other people that are all the other thousands that haven't, I don't know. I'm not focused on them. If you don't have enough people engaging, just get more people. The emails work, the plans work. It's just market information. The only difference is you don't have to come up with the market information like we used to do all the time. You don't have to go and let's pull some stats and let's show them this and let's send them this. It's just done. You set it up and then you watch. You know, I talked about fishing. I made a fishing reference earlier. It's like fishing. This is like, you know, you got 6 or 8 poles on the back of a boat, and you just, you know, the more poles you got in the water, the more chances that you're going to see a bite. So this is a quantity game, and the quantity begets the quality. So doing this just helps you understand who to call. And if you don't have people engaging, you just don't have enough people on smart plans. I think increasing the number of people who are on your smart plans is one of the best things you could possibly do, especially right now with everybody sitting at home and, you know, gobbling up internet bandwidth like it's their job. Maybe it is now.
Yeah, that's cool. I thought you would say that. He's absolutely right. I mean, one of the things we do when agents first start in our company, in our office, is we do the Ignite program about, you know, once a quarter. And that whole Ignite program is about getting 10 new contacts in your database, people that you didn't know, 10 contacts that are in your database that you communicate with, and then send a note to 10 people as well. So it's like you're communicating with people, right? But you're also building your database. You got to keep feeding the database, because it's like a hungry kid. You know, if you don't give it enough cookies, you know, it's not gonna give you what you want. You know?
Snacks, man, snacks all day, every day.
All day long, right? Yeah, I remember my kid when she was younger. We couldn't keep enough snacks in the pantry for the. She would be home one day out of the week, and she would clean that thing out. So. Yeah, so that's
Feed
exactly what your
day.
database is like. You know, you got to feed it the snacks. You don't have enough snacks in that database. Yeah. So, all right. So how do we cultivate? Let's talk about cultivating. So now you have all these leads, right? How are you going to cement the relationship, right? You know, and Alex pointed some of those out, some action plans, right? Smart plans, you know, and people that are not with KW smart plans are just automated processes like drip campaigns, automated text messaging and stuff like that. So yeah, some of the Kellerism stuff that we're talking about, if you don't understand it, that's what we're talking about. So you got to have some kind of drip campaign, right? Whether it's MailChimp, whether it's your CRM, whatever it is, have something automated so that you're constantly talking to people. And like Alex said, in order to cultivate the ones that are actually engaging in your material. The other people are sleepers, they'll eventually come, and provide continuous value. So one of the things that Alex mentioned, which is a big, huge value proposition in our company, is that we're able to give people market data continuously, automatically, without us doing any of that work. So how cool is that? I mean, if you're not utilizing the smart plan of the biweekly nurture or the monthly nurture program, you're missing out. I mean, the first time I initiated the smart plan, you know, for the biweekly nurture, I got 2 listings. I mean, people want the information.
Yeah,
and now
it used to take so much time. That's the thing about it. This is so highly leveraged.
Go ahead, Alex.
If you wanted to send out market information to the people in your database, you had to reinvent the market information every time you wanted to send it, whether that's once a month, twice a month, whatever, and then you had to send it. You don't have to do either of those anymore. The market information is their neighborhood snapshot, it's their page, and they actually create the content when they alter it. And you never have to tell it to keep going or go again. It just goes. So frankly, it was it was always like a team effort for us to keep coming up with content. And, we can only do it for so many people. We got thousands of people in the database. We'll give you Will County level data and Cook County level data. Well, who cares about county level data? There's no such thing as Cook County in the real estate market. Like, it's irrelevant. So even all that work we were doing, it really didn't have a bang for the buck. And we couldn't see who was engaging in it. Now we can see it. We don't have to reinvent it. We don't have to manually do it every time. It is so easy to get it set up and then just go and get more set up and get more set up and get more set up and build the quantity so that you do have people, and they will call you. Like, you'll get people that reach out to you. They'll email you, call you, text you about other things real estate related because they're the ones engaging. I think it's a critical thing to work on right now.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How do you, and I'm interested, I'd like to hear, like, if you have old leads, well, so maybe people you haven't touched on, they're just, maybe they inquired a while back, you haven't followed up. I'm curious to know, like, what are some ideas or what do people do to, like, re-engage instead of just kind of coming out of the blue again, just like, oh, hi. I'm curious if anyone has that and what you do.
For me right now, the biggest thing, believe it or not, this pandemic has actually allowed me to re-engage with those people, because just out of care, out of curiosity of how they're doing, is allowing me to reconnect with all those people. So I had a lot of people in my database that I hadn't contacted in several years, actually, which is, I'm ashamed to say that, but I did. And just calling them right now and checking them on them and saying, hey, I don't know if you remember me. I met you when I was at XYZ company, because some of these people I met them when I was at a couple of brokerages over. And I'm like, I know I sold you the house at 123 Main Street, and I don't know if you remember me, but I'm really just calling because I want to know how you're doing in this time of pandemic, and I'm hoping you're okay. And then they'll actually be very warmed up to that. Like, people actually want you to call them and see how they're doing. We did the same test with one of the girls in my office, Tara. She called people that she hadn't talked to in 2 years, and they were so grateful that she called and checked on them that they called her back, and she got 2 listings out of that. People want to hear from you that you care about them. So this is the best time, believe it or not. I know it's a horrible situation that's out there right now, but for us, it's the best time to reconnect with people that we lost connection with right now. Anybody else have any other things they're doing right now to kind of reconnect with people like that?
I'll chime in on that too. Kim, if it's somebody absolutely no better reason to call. That's an easy one.
More like people that you haven't had you've had conversations with them, or maybe
this is like old leads, like they clicked on a website, there's something like that.
Yes.
All right. So we all know mathematically there's an opportunity lying around in there somewhere. Right. And we also know that's probably not the highest conversion rate place you can go. Correct. Like, if I choose between new leads or old leads, I'll find more business in the new leads. My suggestion would be, if you are just fresh out, completely out of new leads and nobody else to call, you've called all of your Mets, you've called all your past clients, you don't have any more other leads going, go ahead and call through the old leads. What I would rather do is take some bulk action on those old leads. Like, I would go and highlight, select 50 at a time, throw them onto a smart plan, maybe the download my app smart plan, maybe it's a buy a monthly neighborhood nurture, whatever. But I put them on that and let it take about 7 or 8 minutes and let them sort themselves out and see who takes action. And those that then I'd reach out to them. But
yeah, and that's kind of what I was meaning, is more like not so much the more, you're more like the bulk leads that you don't have, and kind of how do you just kind of get them, like, set it and go,
Yeah. If you got 300 leads, go add them all to the promote my app smart plan and a biweekly neighborhood nurture and see what happens, and then if you're checking to see who's clicking on stuff, see who's downloading the app, they get a little check mark by them and command when they download the app. There's your people to call. Now you don't have to call 300. All you got to call is the 4 of them that actually did something with it.
Great. Thank you.
Just only the biweekly nurture, you do have to have a neighborhood in there, okay? So if you don't have a property address or a neighborhood set up for them, that's not going to work that easily.
Well, just go through and add some neighborhoods.
Yeah, I was going to say, go in there and add the neighborhood where your office is at. That's what I do. I'll put them in I think I put like 60 people or 100 people on the Oakland market's neighborhood. And some of them went in there. Yeah, someone in there went in there and changed it. You know, I saw that they actually, it was like 6 of them that actually went in.
Yep.
And they edited the neighborhood, and that's what you want. And those are the people that you're like, okay, I'm going to talk to those people.
Now you can call them because you know the email address is valid. You know there's a real person behind it. You know they're interested in real estate. So I mean, cool. You've narrowed it down. But yeah, that's how the quantity begets the quality. You could take a whole pile of old garbage leads and find the one in there that's actually going to do business right now by using these methods.
Great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for sharing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So as we're going to close the appointment, you know, we talked a lot about like smart plans right now, and so the next thing is like, how do you put them on an 8x8 or a 33 touch? This is outdated. We do more of a 36 touch now. There is an 8x8 plan though in the smart plan, so you could go look at it and see if you like it, and then you could tweak it a little bit. There's some things you could change, like you make sure you put your signature in there and stuff like that, especially if there's texting. So if you're doing automated texting through command, and you're using a Twilio number, make sure you're putting a signature in those text messages that says, hey, this is Kim with Keller Williams, or this is Alex with Keller Williams, and if you need to contact me or have questions, call me at this number. And then at the bottom, and I just put a small line. There's a text only number, you know, so that people know that they can call you at that number. But there's so many things you could do now. I mean, if you start going through your database right now that is slower, and you put them in a quarterly call plan, that's 4 touches, right? And then you put them on a neighborhood biweekly nurture program or market data program, that's 26 touches. So now you're at 30 already with just a quarterly call and a biweekly nurture. And then now you could put a couple other things in place. How about if you know their birthday? Wouldn't it be nice to put them on a smart plan for their birthday and send them a birthday card and maybe text them or call them on their birthday? That's like 2-3 touches if you utilize the smart plan correctly. And then how about if you sold them a house? Wouldn't it be nice to say, hey, it's been, I mean, I just posted it on Facebook the other day. One of my clients, the memory came up 4 years ago. I said, I can't believe it's been 4 years since I sold you this house. How are you and the kids doing? Because I know they have one more kid since then. And they were like, oh my gosh, you know, thanks, Ubaldo, for everything you do. We're doing great. People like that. I mean, so you could get up to a 36, 40 touch really fast if you just think about a few things.
One thing that I've heard a lot of people doing, and we've adopted parts of this too, because nobody likes to look at the project that is, I'm going to take my whole database and I'm going to go find all their birthdays. And, you know, people are like, oh my God, like, they run from stuff like that. So in order to chunk that down into something that's really doable, what I've seen is people will go, you know, intentionally log into Facebook every day. Not that you aren't already, but log into Facebook, check the birthdays for that day. You can wish them a happy birthday right in their timeline or shoot a message right there. But while you're at it, add their birthday to command and see if there's any other, you know, contact information there that's incomplete, right? Because Facebook's going to have birthdays. It might also have a phone number and email address. You know, you can even add their Facebook profile URL in there, although I don't know that feature's super helpful yet. Point being, if you do it like that, you can get all those birthdays into your database. And what we're doing is, if it was one that we missed, then we send out a happy belated birthday card, which there's a part of me that thinks that that's actually better, because on their birthday, everybody's wishing them a happy birthday. If I can wish them a happy birthday a couple days before or a couple days after, I think, you know, it may actually be more noticeable. So I actually don't mind the belated birthday card. We send those out a lot.
And I'll say that's what I've been doing with my command is I'm actually probably more of the voyeur. I'm like going in there and I'm looking. What I found is as I'm going through my database and I'm going into Facebook, I'm finding that there's some people that I never even friended them on Facebook. They're clients of mine. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So, or their spouses, you're able to find their spouses or their spouse's birthday. So I've been gathering all that, copying the, that's what it says a lot of time, but I've been copying the Facebook, putting that in our command. So I have like all of this data and volume, you know, in there for the future. And like you said, I don't know what you're able to do with the Facebook, you know, address or whatever they call it, link. for each person, but I know in command it's there. So they're obviously going to have something for it, right? That we're going to be able to do. So this is the thing that I'm doing. It's time consuming. And like Tara said, my assistant, she's like, well, it's only taken a pandemic for you to finally get into command. But I got there.
Right. Well, and you mentioned your assistant. So for those who don't necessarily want to spend the time doing that project and don't have an assistant, we've lined up an assistant. She lives locally near Oaklawn. She knows command. You don't have to hire her for 40 hours a week like you do some of the other services. You can hire for 1 hour, 2 hours if you need, but she can help you fill in missing contact information. You would want to do this for your sphere of influence and your past clients. You can't do that. You're not going to go stalk down 4,000 Facebook leads, and find their birthdays. But for the people that are, especially your VIPs, your allied resources, your top referrers, your Mets, your past clients, all of those people, you can do this for. And that's how you're going to get to, like Ubaldo said, a 36 or more touch system and get that 10% conversion. So there is leverage available for this, for those of you who may not have an assistant like him.
My assistant, I'm doing it. She don't want to do that.
Well, and if you don't have a huge database yet, there's also, you have Facebook friends. And if you didn't bring your entire Facebook into command, there is a way to do that. And when their birthdays come up, that's also a good way to add them into command. And if I don't have more information about them, I just send them a private message right then saying, hey, how are you doing? I wanted to mail you a little something. What's your address? And people give it to you. I mean, so don't be afraid to ask for information too. And that's how you build your database and get everything that you need in there in order to stay in touch with them effectively.
Michelle, I keep hearing the opposite, that there's no longer a way to import from Facebook.
That is correct, Carmen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did that a long time ago then. So no, there is no way. So
all right.
There's not a workaround. It used to be you could export it to something else and then pull it in. Is that workaround no longer there?
Not anymore.
That program doesn't work anymore, apparently.
After last year's Senate committee meeting with Facebook, due to privacy reasons, we're not allowed to do that anymore. So as of November, we're not able to do that.
Thank you, Carmen.
Cambridge
you're welcome. I was hoping I was wrong.
I heard Cambridge Analytica will do an export for you, free of charge.
Yeah, they will.
So those are all cool options that we cool suggestions we could do, right? So like again, as we're going through this, there's a lot of stop and think, right? So stop and think as you heard us talking about all the different things that we're doing to kind of get those touches up and get our databases going and cultivate these people, so that we could then convert these people to closings. Write down, what is your system for cultivating right now? I guarantee you, because I know I was in this place, even when I was doing business, I didn't really have a system. And I know many of you might not have a system right now. So what kind of system can you put in place? What are some of the action plans that you are using or should be using, right? And go ahead. No, go ahead.
One of the other things that I'm noticing as I'm working on my database and I'm putting in their home anniversary, like when they purchased their home, is it's a great opportunity because some of them, like, first of all, time flies, right? So I thought, oh, maybe I sold it to them 2 years ago and it's been like 6 years ago. And then I'll notice like the address and I'll think, oh my gosh. And so then I'll start looking at what they bought and what it's worth today. What a great opportunity just to go to them and say, hey, reach out. And I was just, looking at, file, however you want to word it, but basically say, what your home was worth today's market? Some people may not even, we always think, I always assume like everybody's, wants to know what their home is worth, but there's a lot of people that have no clue. So they bought it for one day, they don't watch it. And then wouldn't it be great to be able to call someone and tell them your house is worth $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more than when you bought it 5-6 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great, because even there might be people that are like, if they knew they had that kind of money, they might be thinking about relocating or buying a second property. That money could come in handy depending on their situation. So, make sure you write down what are some of the things you are needing to change. And then what are you needing to change the needs for your lead of your leads? Like, what are some of the things you need to do? And what improvements, most importantly, what improvements can you make to your plan or your system? And if you don't have one, the biggest improvement is to actually put one in place. And I'm telling you right now, I was very hesitant. I'm a spreadsheet person, and when I first came to KW, I had like 9 spreadsheets, and each one meant something, right? And I thought that was the best plan ever. And I'm telling you, it was not. And I could breathe now. I have all 2,000 leads, which I found out how many of those were duplicated because I kept forgetting how many of those I moved between spreadsheets. So you'll be surprised. Put them into a system. If you don't have one, that's like the first thing you need to do, because that's going to allow you to convert, your leads. So conversion, it takes skill. You have to know how to read people's motivation. You have to know the market. When people blurt out, well, how's the market doing? I love those conversations. My daughter was a competitive cheerleader since she was like 6 years old all the way through high school. And, I was a cheer dad. So I would love when people be like, oh, you're real estate. How's the market? And I always tell people, because people feel like they need to know the entire market. Like, if I don't know the entire real estate market's doing, I'm not doing my job. I didn't have to know the entire market. I would just be like, the market's doing great. In Oak Lawn today, there was 13 new houses that went on the market. 3 of them closed yesterday, and there are 6 new pendings. And then people would just stare at me and they'll walk away because they didn't think I would have that kind of details. They didn't care about the entire market. They just want to know what you know. So know your market. Know your market, know where you're at. Different regions work differently. I mean, some people might need county data. Some people might need, depending on the type of town you live in. For me, it's the suburbs, right? So I work in the south side of Chicago. I live in Oak Lawn. So if I don't know what Oak Lawn's market is, I have a problem. So know your market. And then be able to talk to people. If you sound nervous or you sound hesitant, people are gonna be thrown off by that. So work on your communication skills. And then have good sales skills, right? Know when to close. Be persuasive. Know how to tell people the data so that they understand it, so they like it. Not everybody likes numbers. Some people genuinely just want to know, hey, is the market doing good? Yeah, the market's doing great. Oh, cool. You sold any houses? Yeah. I had a great month. I had 4 closes last month. Fantastic. But some people, they want the data, and you have to know which people are those. And then again, if you go back to Ignite, we tell people to preview at least 10 homes a week, or 4 homes if you do open houses. Know what's on the market. How cool is it if you talk to somebody and you're having a conversation, they're like, oh no, well, I know the market here, down the street, that house sold for $300,000. No, it did not. What do you mean it did not? No, it did not. I know how much it sold for. That house only had 4 bedrooms, and it had 2 bathrooms. Yours has 3 bathrooms and 5 bedrooms. I'm like, it's gonna, how are you gonna tell me that house is worth a different amount? Know the houses that are selling, because people are gonna tell you, well, the house down the street sold for X amount. No, it did not. Well, my house is better. No, it's not. That one has more bedrooms and more baths. Yours has less bedrooms and more baths. And obviously, you're not gonna say no, it's not. But I mean, know your information. Preview properties. And then make sure you know how many leads it takes for you to convert. What's your conversion rate? How many of you in this Zoom call know what it takes for you how many leads it takes to convert? If you look at the average out there, it's like 75%, right? 75% of the leads you get, you'll convert. 75 of the leads that you go put on the contract, they'll actually close, and so on. So you do your math. Write it down right now. If you don't know what your numbers is, write down how many people have you talked to in the last month, and how many of those people did you actually convert, and find out what your conversion rate is. Because if you know what that is, then you'll be able to say, okay, well, if it's taking me 100 calls, to get 1 appointment, to convert 1, then guess what? You either have to work on your skills, which is more than likely, know your scripts, and make sure that you know what you're saying to people when you're calling them. So script, role play.
Ubaldo, when you talk about tracking, even the word itself can be painful for a lot of us, especially in real estate. It's just this like kryptonite kind of thing, tracking, right? But here's why it matters. Like, if you're not tracking and you've closed 30 deals in the last 12 months, and you tell me you want to close 60 in this 12 months, and I say, well, what's it going to take? You actually can't answer. You don't know. So you can't formulate a path to get to your goals if you don't know how much work it takes to make a widget. You just have to. I mean, it's like, if you make golf clubs and I go, well, how much steel does it, you want to make 4,000 golf clubs next month. How much steel do you need? Well, I don't know. We don't really keep track of that. Well, you're probably not going to make 4,000 golf clubs next month. So the tracking is a means to an end. Yeah, we get it. It's not exciting. You don't want to go into a spreadsheet or go and type things in, or, I know you don't want to do that, but there's no other way for you to control and predict the outcomes of your business other than somehow keeping track of your primary metrics like leads, contacts, leads, appointments. You got to be able to do those things, the 8 goal categories in the MREA.
Absolutely. And that's why I also said, like, when you're calling people and you're using a database system like Command or any other system that you're using, write the notes right there and then, because then you're able to track the activities that you're doing. And Command will actually track how many phone calls you did today, then it will actually, you'll be able to see how many appointments you actually set from those, and it will tell you what your conversion rate is right there and then. You don't have to do a lot of work. So if you're putting systems in place and you're using the systems that you have available to you, the work is going to be so much easier, because I was one of them. I hated writing down how many people I talked to. My first, I think it was Bold, was the first time they gave me that sheet, and I had to write down every person I talked to, and I had to write down, did I ask for the appointment? Did I get the appointment? I mean, that was so painful. Like, I'm not like that. I like to have it on my phone. I'm a techie guy. So if I can put it on my phone, it was a pain. So as you're talking about conversion, what makes a seller right and what makes them not right, right? So one is motivation. Motivation is like we talk about motivation for everything. What's the motivation for them to sell? What's the motivation to buy? But most importantly, are they motivated to price it correctly? If you know the house is only worth 200 grand, but they want to list it at 5 and they don't want to budge, is he the right seller for you? Probably not. Second, I mean, are you studying your objections handlers? Because if they're not pricing it correctly, what are you saying to them to make sure that you price it correctly? And if they still don't want to be motivated enough to sell it for less, then maybe he's not the right seller. Second, are they motivated to get the property in the condition that it needs to be? Like, for crying out loud, clean the kids' clothing on the floor before showings. Vacuum up the dog's hair, if that's the only thing you do today. Like, come on, right? So are they motivated for that? And then second, and then lastly, what's the urgency to sell a house? Like, do they need to move? Do they have a job? Do they have way too many kids in that house and they need a bigger house because the 2-bedroom house is just not cutting it no more? So these are the things you need to ask yourself every single time when you're finding out if this is the right seller. And trust me, I have walked away from sellers and I have fired sellers, because sometimes if you spend way too much time, it's going to cost you, it's going to cost you more to keep them than you're actually going to earn from them. So make sure you're asking yourself, are they priced correctly? Are they motivated to do so? Are they motivated to keep the house clean for showings, presentable? And what is the urgency? Do they actually have an urgency? If it's just a guy like, I'm going to see what happens. If it sells over the summer, great. If it doesn't, who cares? Well, if that is really his urgency, then is he the right seller, right? So you got to make sure you understand your motivations. Same thing with buyers. Are they ready financially? Are you getting your buyers pre-approved? Are you doing consultations? That was my biggest fault when I was working with buyers. I would get so frustrated. My biggest fault was that I never did a consultation. Now, when I first started in real estate, I was literally told, there's a desk, you could use that if it's not being used. If not, find another spot and good luck. And that was a train. That's about as much train I got. So one of the things is I didn't know I could do, or I should do, a consultation. And that was a game changer. Do a consultation with them, because then you're going to find out from them, are you ready to buy financially? Have you been working on the same job for at least 2 years? Have you filed taxes for at least 2 years? Have you gotten pre-approved? Do you need to sell a house before you buy? What is it? If you have a lease, when does your lease expire? Because if the lease expires 6 months from now, guess what? You probably should not be looking yet. Because more than likely, the lease will say they can't get out of it. And then look for the lacks of motivation. Are they willing to go get pre-approved if they're not? Like in my consultations, and I don't work with a lot of buyers anymore, but when I would do my consultation, if they told me they weren't pre-approved, I'm like, let's get so-and-so on the phone. Let's get you pre-approved while we're going over this other stuff. Because my lender could do it over the phone. You know, are they motivated to talk to their landlord if they are under a lease? Can we get them on the phone? Is he willing to let you out of the lease, you know, a couple months early? And, you know, are they ready to make a decision? If they're hesitant, if they can't make decisions, do you really want to drive around to see 40 houses? Probably not. You know, not at $2 a gallon for gas. So it's up to you. Really, it is. So sellers. So these are things you need to know. Would you like me to handle the sale for you? These are just like simple questions you need to be asking, either directly or indirectly, but you need to put it in there. Do you want me to sell your house for you? Would you like me to get your home sold? Like, what is the things you want to do? You know, same thing with the buyers. You like me to help you to find your dream home? Are you ready to make a move now? I definitely don't want to be showing people houses. You know, that was the biggest thing with buyers. The consultations, game changer. All right, so let's just look at some reviews here, right? So let's look at the progress that we did here. So one of the things you need to do, I hope you guys took notes. Look at the progress in your lead capturing conversion, which is essential. And I hope you took notes of what's working for you and what isn't working for you. And understand the areas of leads to appointments, appointments to sign agreements, and agreements to close transactions. And I know we talked a little bit about tracking towards the end. Knowing your conversion rate will be a game changer if you know what your conversion rates are, because then you know how many people you need to talk to. And keep feeding that database. All right, so let's stop and think for a second, real quick. Do you track your conversion rate? Most of you probably don't. And then if you track it, what is it based on? And then what are the improvements you need to do to benefit from this? Those things are very important, guys. If you're not taking care of that, I don't know what to tell you. Because if you don't know how many people you're talking to, how do you know how many appointments you're going to get this week? You're going in blind. All right, so just bottom line, guys, you know, as we close this off, you know, every lead matters. It has potential. You know, I take every lead, and unless they unsubscribe from my emails, unless they tell me to stop texting them, I keep emailing them. Actually, when I close a lead in my MLS system, even though I have my drip campaign in the system, I keep sending them properties from the MLS until they unsubscribe, because it works the same way as a CRM. It's like a double whammy. You know, and then find out, you know, always keep finding out, keep asking questions and find out which ones are the motivated ones and which ones are ready and able and willing to do business with you. Any questions, guys?
Ubaldo, this was fantastic, brother. I really appreciate you breaking this down, man. I think a lot of people who are interested in lead generation, having this idea of like the capture phase and then the conversion phase is going to be pretty critical. And I like what Kim said too. A lot of us are probably out there sitting on a bankroll of leads, old or untouched, that now is an opportunity to revisit them, whether it's putting them on a neighborhood nurture, throwing them down on the app setup where they're getting those hits for the app, all of those things. So yeah, for sure, man. Huge perspectives and ahas for me today. Love it, brother.
Thanks, David. Appreciate that.
Great job. Great job. Very in depth. Thank you.
No, thank you guys for attending. I hope you guys come to the next shift lessons. The next one's on Wednesday. You know, we're just going to keep breaking it down for you guys so you keep making some money here and keeping you guys in business. So stay positive and keep moving forward. I'll stay around if you guys have questions. If not, have a great day. It's 2:30 in Chicago, and I think it's like, what, 12:30 and 12:30 over there in Cali? Yeah, it's lunchtime.
Thanks, Ubaldo.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks, Ubaldo. See you guys on Wednesday.
What's in the mailbox?
Oh, those keys probably.
Yeah, that guy was here with the gray car.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ubaldo, I have a question about the Twilio account. How do we set those up?
It's right through command, actually. You go to command, go to settings, and go to Twilio, and then you could set it up right from there, and it's super easy.
Okay, does it cost anything?
I'll ask you for your credit card. You don't need nothing in the beginning as long as it has as long as you're using the Keller Williams number. But if you want a custom number, it will cost you $1.
So what's the Keller Williams number? I'm like,
It's
just our
a
office number?
it's a 512 Texas area code.
Okay, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
You're very welcome.